Shall we head to the store together, or do you want me to go alone? Alexey asked, glancing over at his wife. Before Marina could respond, the doorbell rang, loud and insistent, the kind of ring that could only mean one thing. Marina was busy in the kitchen, focused on preparing dinner, but Alexey didn't need to look to know who it was. "It's Tatiana Pavlovna," he muttered under his breath. The relentless ring was a trademark of his mother-in-law. No one else dared press the bell with such determination, as if she could push it straight through the door. "Marina, your parents are here," Alexey called out, trying to keep his frustration at bay. "Please open the door, I'm dealing with the chicken." Marina's voice echoed from the kitchen. Sighing, Alexey shuffled reluctantly toward the door, and there they were, standing in the hallway, Tatiana Pavlovna and Vladimir Sergeyevich. As always, his mother-in-law was impeccably dressed, perfectly applied makeup, a sleek new suit, and her hair styled to perfection. Her husband, on the other hand, looked disheveled, as if he had wandered in from a completely different world. "Hello, Alexey," Tatiana Pavlovna chirped brightly, eyeing him up. "You look a little pale today. Are you overworking yourself?" "I'm fine," Alexey muttered, stepping aside to let them in. Tatiana Pavlovna, already in full motion, called toward the kitchen. "Oh, darling. We've come for an important discussion." Alexey couldn't help but roll his eyes. Important discussion from Tatiana Pavlovna was never a good omen. "Mom, Dad, please come in," Marina said, clearly flustered. "Dinner's almost ready. You can sit in the living room." "I'll be right there." Tatiana Pavlovna waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, darling, we're not here for food." She plopped herself down at the table, making herself comfortable. "We're here for business." Vladimir Sergeyevich muttered something unintelligible, then slumped into a chair, clutching his chest in exaggerated distress. "Dad, are you okay?" Marina asked, panic rising in her voice. "Well, darling," Tatiana Pavlovna interrupted, "your father's health is deteriorating. The doctors say he needs fresh air and nature. The city apartment is far too polluted and noisy for him." She paused for dramatic effect, watching Alexey closely. "So we were thinking." Alexey tense, already anticipating what was coming, and he didn't like it one bit. "What were you thinking?" Marina asked, turning off the stove. Tatiana Pavlovna continued, her voice soft but laden with expectation. "We were thinking of getting a small house in the countryside. Just a modest one, so your father can get some rest and breathe in the fresh air. He's in such poor health, as you can see." Vladimir Sergeyevich began coughing again, clutching his chest for emphasis. "But Mom, where would the money come from?" Marina asked hesitantly, her brow furrowed. "Oh, we heard," Tatiana Pavlovna interrupted smoothly, "that Alexey received a nice bonus at work. And I'm sure you're doing well at the bank too." Alexey closed his laptop and walked into the kitchen, his tone sharp. "Wait, are you seriously asking us to buy you a house?" "What's wrong with that?" Tatiana Pavlovna blinked innocently. "We raised you and your brother, gave you everything you needed. And now you can't help your parents in their old age." Alexey smirked, though it was more of a nervous twitch than a smile. "You really want us to buy you a house?" "Alexey, don't get so worked up," Tatiana Pavlovna said, leaning forward with an air of sincerity. "We're not asking for anything extravagant, just a little cottage." "A little cottage for a couple of million, right?" Alexey shot back, his patience starting to fray. Marina looked nervously from her husband to her mother, sensing the storm brewing between them. Tatiana Pavlovna raised her voice, a tinge of anger creeping in. "Why are you making such a fuss? All we want is what's best. Just look at your father. He's barely hanging on." Vladimir Sergeyevich coughed again, theatrically pulling out a bottle of pills. "Mom, that's incredibly expensive," Marina said, her voice trembling. "We just finished paying off our mortgage." Tatiana Pavlovna snapped, her voice sharp as a whip. "So what? You can't help your parents now. After everything we did for you, you think we're too much of a burden. Ungrateful." Marina's lips quivered, and Alexey could feel the anger boiling over. The tension in the room was unbearable. "All right, Tatiana Pavlovna, let's stop beating around the bush. What exactly do you mean by modest when you talk about this house?" Alexey's voice was tight, trying to mask his growing frustration. Tatiana Pavlovna's face brightened instantly, her cheerful demeanor returning. Oh, it's nothing extravagant, she said, practically beaming. Just a small house in the Moscow suburbs. About 120 square meters, with 6 acres of land, a sauna, and a garage. Alexey's eyebrows shot up, and he cut her off before she could continue. And the cost? His voice was sharp. Just 8 million rubles, she replied airily, as if it were pocket change. Really, it's practically nothing by today's standards. The room fell into a heavy silence. The only sound that broke the stillness was the tick-tock of the clock on the wall, mixed with the ragged, labored breaths of Vladimir Sergeyevich. 8 million is nothing. Alexey stood up, his hands balling into fists at his sides. Are you out of your mind? Marina and I spent 3 years working our fingers to the bone just to pay off our apartment. And now you want us to buy you a house? Tatiana Pavlovna didn't flinch. What's so outrageous about it? She shot back, her voice tinged with indignation. You got a nice bonus, didn't you? You could make an effort for your wife's parents. Or do you just not care about us, or your father-in-law's health? Alexey clenched his jaw, fury bubbling up inside him. What does health have to do with this? He demanded. You know perfectly well that Vladimir Sergeyevich has a minor arrhythmia, not some terminal illness. A disease, you say? Tatiana Pavlovna hissed, narrowing her eyes. Your Lekka's disease. How dare you? Tatiana Pavlovna shrieked, her voice rising in outrage. Marina, did you hear how your husband speaks about your father? He doesn't even see us as human. Marina, unable to hold it in any longer, burst into tears. Lyosha, maybe we should think about it, she said between sobs. Dad really isn't doing well. Alexey's heart sank as he stared at his wife in disbelief. Are you serious right now? You're suggesting we take out a multi-million ruble loan to buy your parents a house. But Marina's voice quivered. They've done so much for me. There, Tatiana Pavlovna exclaimed triumphantly, almost glowing with victory. At least my daughter understands the importance of helping your parents. But you, son-in-law, clearly weren't raised properly. Oh, believe me, I was raised properly. Alexey's voice was a low growl now. I was raised to never beg from my own children and to avoid playing dead just to get a house. Suddenly, Vladimir Sergeyevich sprang to his feet, his earlier feigned frailty forgotten in the heat of the moment. He took a dramatic step forward, glaring at Alexey with fiery eyes. How dare you speak to your father-in-law like that, you insolent brat? The kitchen, once a place of routine and comfort, had now become a battlefield. Marina huddled by the refrigerator, her face streaked with tears as she sobbed uncontrollably. Tatiana Pavlovna, red-faced and shaking with rage, waved her arms in the air, practically choking on her fury. You ungrateful wretch, she spat. Who were you before we took you in? A penniless nobody from a dorm. And what did we do? We gave you our only daughter. We helped you buy your apartment, for heaven's sake. The air was thick with tension, the weight of the accusation hanging over them all, and Alexey could feel his temper breaking at the seams. Helped? Alexey scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. You mean the 50,000 rubles you've never let us forget? Stop it, please, Marina cried, her voice breaking. Let's just talk calmly. Calmly? Vladimir Sergeyevich roared, his fist pounding the table so forcefully the cups rattled. With this ungrateful man, he doesn't even see us as human. Dad, your heart, Marina shrieked, her voice thick with panic. To hell with my heart, he thundered, standing up so abruptly the chair nearly tipped over. I'll teach him to respect his elders. Alexey leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a cynical smirk on his face as the scene before him unraveled like a bad play. He let the tension build before speaking softly, his words laced with accusation. I figured it out, he said, eyes narrowing. You didn't come here by chance. You must have found out about my new project and the stake I'm supposed to get from the deal. Tatiana Pavlovna hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty, but it was enough for Alexey to know he was right. Marina, Tatiana Pavlovna's voice suddenly softened, a sweetness creeping in. Did you know your husband has been keeping secrets from you? That he has deals behind your back? Marina blinked, her tear-streaked face lifting toward Alexey. What? She whispered, her voice trembling. Lyosha, what is she talking about? There you go. Tatiana Pavlovna seized the moment, her voice rising with triumph. He doesn't even tell his own wife about his affairs, and you still defend him. How dare you? Alexey exploded, stepping forward in fury. How did you find out about the deal? Who told you? Aha! Tatiana Pavlovna crowed, pointing a finger at him. So it's true, you're hiding something. Vladimir, do you hear this? He's hiding money from our daughter. Lyosha. Marina's voice shook as she rose from her chair, her eyes wide with confusion and hurt. Is it true? Do you have secrets from me? It's just a work project, Alexey stammered, trying to explain. I was going to tell you when. When? Tatiana Pavlovna interrupted, her voice filled with venom. When you've hidden all the money? Marina, open your eyes. He's lying to you. Suddenly, Vladimir Sergeyevich collapsed, clutching his chest with dramatic flair. Daddy, Marina screamed, rushing to his side, her hands shaking as she tried to help. Call an ambulance. Tatiana Pavlovna screamed in a frenzy, her voice shrill with panic. You've killed him, you murderer. The paramedics arrived in a flurry of motion, but their reaction was far from what anyone had expected. A young doctor examined Vladimir Sergeyevich, his brow furrowing in confusion. Strange, the doctor muttered, glancing at his clipboard. His vitals are normal. Blood pressure is fine. Normal? Tatiana Pavlovna shrieked, her face contorted in disbelief. Are you blind? He's dying. Listen, the doctor said firmly, raising a hand. False emergency calls are punishable by a fine. The patient shows no signs of a heart attack. Alexey couldn't hold it in any longer. He burst out laughing, the sound mocking and harsh. Bravo, bravo. What a performance. You even dragged the paramedics into your circus. You. Vladimir Sergeyevich stammered, his face turning red with fury. Without skipping a beat, Vladimir Sergeyevich sprang up, fully recovered from his supposed collapse. I'll show you, he shouted, pointing an accusing finger at Alexey. Stop, Marina's voice rang out, strong and commanding for the first time. I figured it out. Mom, Dad, this was all an act, wasn't it? The whole illness routine. Tatiana Pavlovna faltered, her eyes darting nervously. Daughter, how can you say that? She fluttered around, suddenly uncertain. We were just. Enough, Marina's voice broke through the chaos, her words cutting through the air like a knife. I understand everything now. You found out about Lyosha's project and thought you could trick me, make me think he was hiding something. The doctor, who had clearly realized he was caught in the middle of a family drama, retreated quickly, muttering something about needing to leave. Tatiana Pavlovna, unwilling to back down, shot a final barb. You know, your dear husband was planning to pocket 3 million rubles and keep it all to himself. I know, Marina interjected, her voice steady and clear. He told me everything yesterday. It's his bonus for the project he's been working on for 6 months. And you? You just wanted to create a rift between us and scam us for money. The tension in the room was unbearable, and for the first time in her life, Marina stood firm, fully seeing through the manipulation of her parents. What? Vladimir Sergeyevich's face flushed a deep red, his voice laced with fury. How dare you speak to us like that? Do you even understand what's happening here, what he's done? And how dare you manipulate us like this? Marina's voice broke, but her words were sharp. It's bad enough that you tried to deceive us, but you even called an ambulance, taking resources away from people who actually need them. Tatiana Pavlovna's eyes widened in disbelief. Daughter, do you even realize what you're saying? Her voice trembled, but her anger remained. Yes, I do. Marina's sobs were raw now. You raised me like this, and now you expect me to be forever indebted to you? You want me to sit back and watch as you tear my family apart? Tatiana Pavlovna's temper snapped. You should have married Slava. She spat, her words dripping with venom. At least he was a real man, someone who loved and respected us. But this good for nothing. Get out, Alexey interjected, his voice low and resolute. What? Tatiana Pavlovna's eyes widened in shock. You're throwing us out. Yes, I am, Alexey said calmly, standing tall as he walked to the door and swung it open. And don't come back until you've learned to respect this family. Marina. Vladimir Sergeyevich tried to protest, his voice cracking with desperation. Say something. I agree with my husband. Marina said firmly, wiping the tears from her face. Leave, and don't come back until you're ready to apologize. Tatiana Pavlovna stood frozen in the doorway, her face contorted in disbelief. Her trembling hands shook with a rage that barely contained itself. So that's how it is, she sneered at Marina, her voice dripping with venom. You're choosing this scoundrel over your own parents. Stop it, Mom, Marina said, her voice steady despite the tears. You know perfectly well you planned all of this. We planned this? Vladimir Sergeyevich's face twisted in disbelief, his hands clutching his head. We did this. Yes, Marina said, her voice bitter with years of unspoken resentment. Remember when you helped me pick out my wedding dress? You told me, that one's too expensive. Get a cheaper one. You'll be divorced in a year anyway. Or when we were apartment hunting? Why settle for a 2-bedroom? You'll break up soon enough. She turned to face her parents fully now, her words full of conviction. And I figured it out. You found out about Lyosha's project from your friend in accounting. Then you staged this whole heart attack drama to try and extort us. You! Vladimir Sergeyevich's face turned purple, his voice faltering with rage. I'll? What? Alexey stepped forward, his body rigid with anger. You're going to hit me? Go ahead. But don't be surprised when you never see your grandchildren. Grandchildren? Tatiana Pavlovna's face went pale as if all the color drained from her in an instant. What grandchildren? Yes. Marina's voice rang out, stronger than ever. I'm 3 months pregnant. I was going to tell you today, Mom. But now I don't even know if I want my child to have anything to do with grandparents like you. A heavy silence descended upon the room, broken only by Vladimir Sergeyevich's labored breathing and the sound of Tatiana Pavlovna's sobs echoing through the entryway. Leave, Alexey said, his voice quiet but unwavering. And don't call us. We'll decide when we want to see you. Marina. Tatiana Pavlovna's cry echoed down the hall, desperate and full of disbelief. Goodbye, Marina said, turning away and stepping closer to Alexey. She leaned into him, taking comfort in his embrace. And don't come back until you've learned to respect our choices. The door slammed shut with a finality that seemed to reverberate through the hallway. From the other side, Tatiana Pavlovna's loud sobs mixed with Vladimir Sergeyevich's angry muttering. Alexey and Marina stood together in the entryway, holding onto each other tightly, their bodies still shaking from the raw emotions of the confrontation. You know, Marina said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, I never thought I'd be able to stand up to them like that. They brought it on themselves, Alexey replied, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. They can't manipulate their children forever. And I really am pregnant, Marina added with a faint nervous smile. I was going to tell you today. I know, Alexey said with a knowing smile. I saw the test in the bathroom a week ago. I was just waiting for you to tell me yourself. Outside, Tatiana Pavlovna's wailing and Vladimir Sergeyevich's curses grew fainter, their footsteps fading as they moved away from the door. Ungrateful, you'll choke on that money. You'll come crawling back to beg for forgiveness. Tatiana Pavlovna's shrill voice cut through the quiet. We won't, Alexey called out, his voice clear and strong, loud enough for them to hear through the door. It's time to live our own lives. Let them crawl back to us on their knees, Vladimir Sergeyevich muttered, his voice thick with bitterness. We've got nothing left to do here. Let's go to Slava instead. Hopefully, his wife is more accommodating than this one. The echo of their footsteps faded completely as the door shut tight, leaving behind a silence that felt like freedom.